Intro, redefining greatness. Forget everything you thought you knew about strength. For decades, we've celebrated power through medals, victories, and perfect performances. But what if true greatness isn't about never falling, but about how you rise when the world expects you to stand tall? Simone Biles. The name alone became synonymous with perfection. A living legend. The most decorated gymnast in history. To many, she was untouchable, gravity's greatest rival. But behind every flawless landing, there was a story of pain, sacrifice, and an unspoken truth that would one day shake the foundation of sports itself. This isn't just a story about gymnastics. It's a story about courage, about self-worth, about redefining what it truly means to be strong. Chapter 1. Beyond the Gold. A champion's evolving narrative. The crowd roars. The music starts. And there she is. A small figure standing alone under the blinding lights. Eyes locked on the mat, heart steady, mind focused. In that silence before the first leap, Simone Biles becomes something more than an athlete. She becomes a symbol of human potential, the living proof that limits exist only to be rewritten. Her journey began long before the medals and fame. Born into a world that didn't promise her much, she faced challenges that could have easily broken a spirit less determined. But from a young age, Simone had something rare. That unshakable belief that greatness could come from anywhere. Adopted by her grandparents, she found not just a family, but a foundation. A home built on love, discipline, and the quiet belief that she was meant for something extraordinary. Gymnastics became her language. While others walked, she flew. Every spin, every flip was a sentence of strength. Every landing, a full stop of confidence. And the world noticed. By her teens, Simone was already shattering records. By her 20s, she was rewriting history. People called her the GOAT, the greatest of all time. But few understood the price that title demanded. Behind the breathtaking routines were endless hours of pain, sweat, repetition, and moments of doubt she could never show. The cameras captured perfection. They never captured the cost. She carried the weight of expectation from coaches, fans, her country, and the entire world. Every time she walked onto the mat, it wasn't just Simone competing. It was America's hope, her team's pride, and the myth of perfection itself. And that myth grew heavier with each victory. The applause was thunderous. But when the lights faded and the arena emptied, silence followed. And in that silence, questions began to whisper. What if I'm only loved when I win? What happens if I fail? Success had made her untouchable, but also isolated. Greatness had lifted her high above everyone else, yet left her standing alone. There's a moment in every champion's life when they realize the fight isn't just against opponents, but against the image the world has built for them. For Simone, that moment was approaching, quietly, steadily, like a storm gathering far beyond the gold. Chapter 2. The Twisties and Tokyo. A Turning Point Tokyo, 2021. The air was electric. The world waited for Simone Biles, the living legend, the queen of the impossible, to do what she always did. Perform perfection. Billions of eyes watched as she took her position. Years of dedication, sacrifice, and repetition had led to this moment. The music started. She launched herself into the air, and then, everything changed. In an instant, gravity turned into chaos. Her body spun, but her mind lost track. The twisties, a word few outside gymnastics had ever heard, suddenly became a global conversation. To the world, it looked like just a stumble. But for an athlete who lives by precision, it was like losing the compass that keeps you alive in midair. Imagine jumping, flipping, twisting, and realizing that you no longer know which way is up or down. That's not just confusion, that's danger. One wrong landing could end a career, even a life. In that split second, Simone had to make a decision. Not as a performer, not as a champion, but as a human being. Every voice around her, coaches, cameras, commentators, screamed, "Push through!" But a quieter, wiser voice within whispered, "Stop." And she listened. She stepped back. The crowd fell silent. The moment stretched like eternity. The headlines exploded. Biles withdraws. The world gasped. How could the strongest suddenly step away? Some called it weakness. Others were confused. But something much bigger was happening. Simone didn't quit. She chose herself. She chose safety over spectacle, health over heroism. And in doing so, she broke the invisible rule that had trapped generations of athletes. The idea that your worth depends only on your performance. Her decision sent shockwaves through the world of sports. Suddenly, we were all forced to ask, what if greatness isn't about pushing until you break, but knowing when to pause? What if courage isn't finishing the routine, but daring to protect your mind? For Simone, that day in Tokyo wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning of a revolution. A moment when the most decorated gymnast in history taught the world that even champions have limits, and that honoring those limits is the ultimate act of strength. Because sometimes stepping back doesn't mean giving up. Sometimes it means taking the first step toward becoming whole again. Chapter 3. Redefining Strength. Vulnerability as Power. In the days that followed Tokyo, the noise was deafening. Opinions filled every screen. Headlines, tweets, talk shows. Everyone had something to say. Some defended her, others questioned her courage. But in the middle of that storm, Simone Biles stood tall and calm, speaking with a quiet strength that silenced the chaos. She looked into the cameras and said, "I have to focus on my mental health." 7 simple words, but they cracked open a world that had been silent for too long. For decades, athletes had been trained to endure, to push, to fight, to hide the pain. To show emotion was to show weakness, to struggle was to fail. But Simone changed the rules. She showed that true strength isn't about how much pressure you can take. It's about having the courage to say, "Enough." Her words carried farther than any gold medal ever could. Young athletes began to speak up. Celebrities opened up about their own battles. People everywhere, from students to soldiers to single parents, finally felt seen. Because what Simone did wasn't just for herself. It was for everyone who had ever smiled on the outside while breaking on the inside. She showed that mental health isn't something to be ashamed of. It's something to protect, nurture, and fight for. And in doing so, she redefined what it means to be powerful. Vulnerability became her new superpower. Not the kind that flips through the air, but the kind that reaches hearts across the world. When she returned home, she spoke at schools, events, and foundations. Not about winning, but about healing. Not about perfection, but about being real. Her message was simple but revolutionary. You are not your mistakes. You are not your medals. You are human, and that's enough. Simone taught us that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes, courage is the quiet voice that says, "I'll try again tomorrow." Through her honesty, she turned pain into purpose and struggle into strength. And suddenly, the world began to see something new. A kind of heroism that wasn't built in the gym, but in the heart. Chapter 4. Self-care, a non-negotiable for greatness. When the lights of Tokyo faded and the headlines moved on, Simone finally allowed herself to exhale. For the first time in years, there were no judges waiting, no routines to perfect, no cameras watching every step, just silence. The kind that feels uncomfortable at first, then slowly begins to heal. She had spent her whole life running toward greatness, but now she needed to walk back toward herself. So she did something the world rarely sees from its heroes. She rested. She went home. She surrounded herself with family, with laughter, warmth, and love that had nothing to do with medals. She spent time with her younger siblings, played with her dogs, enjoyed mornings without alarms. She learned to enjoy small things. Breakfast without rushing, a day without a schedule, peace without guilt. At first, rest felt foreign. For someone trained to always move, stillness felt like defeat. But soon she realized that rest is not the absence of effort. It's the foundation that sustains it. She began therapy, opened up about her fears, and rebuilt the parts of herself that had been ignored. The world had celebrated her physical power, but now she was strengthening something even greater: her mind, her peace, her boundaries. In that space of quiet recovery, Simone discovered a truth every achiever needs to hear. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Discipline drives success, but self-care ensures survival. Months later, when she stepped back into the gym, her movements were slower, softer, but her eyes were clearer. She trained not to prove herself, but to reconnect with what she loved. Every stretch, every landing, every breath was no longer about chasing perfection. It was about honoring herself. She returned to competition on her own terms, and when she smiled, it wasn't the forced grin of performance. It was real, the kind that comes from balance, from freedom. Her comeback wasn't about reclaiming the title of the greatest. It was about reclaiming herself. She had learned that greatness without peace is just pressure, and peace without purpose is just comfort. The true art is to live in the space where both exist together. That was the lesson Simone Biles brought home. Success built on exhaustion will crumble, but success rooted in self-care can last a lifetime. Chapter 5. The legacy of a true pioneer. Years will pass, and the record books will still carry her name. Simone Biles, the most decorated gymnast in history. But when people speak of her legacy, they won't just talk about her medals. They'll talk about the moment she chose herself, about the courage to stop when everyone expected her to keep going, about how she turned vulnerability into a revolution. Because Simone didn't just change gymnastics, she changed what the world believes about strength. She showed that you can be both soft and powerful, both scared and brave. That greatness isn't built by ignoring pain, but by facing it head-on. She gave permission to a generation to protect their mental health, to say no when the world demands more, and to chase success without losing themselves in the process. Her impact went far beyond the gym. Schools began teaching young athletes about balance and mental well-being. Coaches started asking not just, "How are you performing?" but "How are you feeling?" Because one woman dared to tell the truth, that even heroes need healing. Simone became a symbol not of perfection, but of possibility. She showed that you can fall and still be unshaken, that stepping away can be an act of strength, not surrender, that the most important victories are often invisible, the quiet battles within the heart, where no cameras reach and no trophies shine. And when she finally returned to competition, her presence carried a new kind of gravity. The crowd didn't just see a gymnast, they saw a human being who had faced her fear and walked through it with grace. Every leap, every smile, every moment on that mat was no longer just performance. It was proof. Proof that healing doesn't make you weaker, it makes you unstoppable. Years from now, little girls will still hang posters of Simone Biles on their walls, not just because she could fly higher than anyone else, but because she taught them why they should want to. Not for applause, not for medals, but for themselves. Her story is no longer just about winning gold. It's about redefining it, because real gold isn't worn around your neck. It's carried inside you. It's the courage to rest when the world demands motion. It's the power to be honest when perfection feels like the only option. It's the grace to rise again, not for the crowd, but for the mirror. Simone Biles will forever be remembered not just as the greatest gymnast who ever lived, but as a pioneer, a woman who taught us that greatness without peace is hollow, and that true victory begins within. So when life knocks you down, when pressure closes in, when you feel like you have nothing left to give, remember her story. Remember that strength is not the absence of struggle. It's the decision to keep moving forward, with heart, humility, and hope. Because like Simone, you were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be real. And that's where true greatness begins. Closing message, the heart of greatness. So when you find yourself standing at the edge of exhaustion, when the world demands that you keep going, even as your soul begs for rest, remember this: you are not defined by how much you can endure, but by how deeply you can listen to yourself. Greatness isn't a race, it's not a scoreboard, it's a quiet promise to keep showing up for your life, even when no one is watching, Simone Biles reminded us that true power doesn't come from pretending to be invincible. It comes from standing in your truth, trembling but unbroken. So take the pause you need, heal what hurts, protect your peace, because when you rise again, and you will rise, you'll rise not just stronger but freer. And maybe then, like Simone, you'll realize that the real gold has been within you all along.